Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update. And I am your host, Candi CWall Waller, checking in as I do all throughout the NFL season to give you the latest and greatest information on the Washington Commanders. You all, welcome back from the bye week. I don't really feel like I've been gone, though. But nonetheless, welcome back from the bye week. I hope everyone enjoyed their bye week, NFL Sunday, watching non-Commanders football this week. So we'll get into that in a moment. If you all are tuning in, this is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here is being streamed live right now on the Bowie TV YouTube channel, as well as my page, my Candi Waller page. And also, you're probably watching it, maybe even televised on Verizon Fios channel 11 or Comcast Xfinity channel 77. And if you are, hello to the television watchers, hello to those streaming. Yes, absolutely. We have an update. Press conferences were back in order. So if you're checking in on YouTube, make sure, I really hope you all are subscribed to the Bowie TV YouTube channel, because as you can see, there's tons of great shows, content, you name it, on the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Definitely subscribe. Fire emoji if you're joining. If you're streaming through Facebook, love button. Share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. We're going to go ahead and check in. And oh, yes, you have to say hello to Mama Waller and Papa Waller while you all are checking in as well. We see that Stephen Askins has joined in. Eric Jessup has joined in. So if you want that shout out, or you want me to acknowledge your question and your comment, definitely go ahead, drop it in the chat, because I will try to address as many comments and questions as I possibly can. I did get some questions in over the bye week, so I want to make sure I get to those as well. You all know the drill here. There wasn't a game for me to ask you what's your one word to describe how you are feeling about the game, but I'm hoping you still watched some NFL games. So we're going to talk about those and what we learned this weekend. And then we're going to get into some clips and start to think about what's next. Up next is the New Orleans Saints. So there's still a lot to discuss, and we're going to get into that. But first, as I just mentioned, what did you learn watching the NFL Week 14 games? Drop some of your thoughts in the chat, and I will certainly try to comment and just grab as many of these comments as I possibly can. But go ahead and drop, what did you learn watching the NFL Week 14 games? See, the thing of it is, sometimes you end up watching games on Sundays anyway, because when the Commanders play, Monday night, Thursday night, you end up still watching games on Sunday. So drop in the chat some things that you learned. I'm going to tell you this. One thing that I learned is that the Commanders aren't the only team with kicker issues. Okay. Something is just going on. And kickers are having a hard time. Some of the best dealing with injuries this season, just inconsistent. And so it's a thing. So I don't know where the next generation of kickers reside right now, but hopefully they're on deck, because it is certainly really hard to make a field goal these days in the NFL. It sure does seem to be that way. Week 14, let me also say this. Another thing that I learned is that teams are really still playing. There's always this notion around tanking or a team just giving up or saying, forget it. And that's just not happening. You all have heard me say this before. Every game is an audition. Every game is an opportunity to get better. Every game is more film. So players and coaches, staff alike, is not trying to just say whatever at this point in the season. That's just not what they're doing at all. So that's one of the other things that I just learned. And I mean, there's still some great football being played. While we can always just take a note and look at some of the newcomers, right? Of course, everyone's enjoying the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, of course, right? I know there's a lot of talk about, and I think they're on a bye as well, the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix, but there's still so much left in the tank, and just a lot of people, the Rams Bills game, tremendous. It was a really good game. So you got to shout out the coaching staffs and the quarterbacks and the players from those games. I'm still been, you all know that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson and what he's doing this season. I'm like, well, is anybody going to apologize to Russell Wilson for trying to say that man was washed up? Because he is clearly not at all. So certainly enjoyed watching that game and just all the rest of it. All of it. Just keep it going. You got to say that I was actually holding my breath watching the Philadelphia Eagles Carolina Panthers game. I was holding my breath like, whoa, are the Panthers really going to pull this off? They didn't, but it was still, interesting to see. And just kind of the whole conversations around who could be coach of the year, who's going to be MVP, and just all of those things. It's just football is great. All sports are great, but it's good to always watch other teams play because, as I tell you all the time, you have to watch other teams play to keep your finger on the pulse. And if you don't watch, you have to absolutely watch the division. And is it the NFC? An interesting conference overall right now. All of the different scenarios, the if-thens is a lot. But you absolutely have to pay attention to what's happening in the division, but then the conference overall, and just keeping the finger on the pulse to say, here's how teams are playing. Here's how they're coming out in week 14. No one is trying to lose their jobs. And so it's fun. It's fun to watch. So I want to shout out this comment here, and you all listen. We're going to get into some clips. Fire emoji, love button if you tuned in to Dan Quinn's press conference earlier today. I'm going to get into his press conference, and through some of this in the pressers, I will answer some questions that I received during the bye. But before that, let's go ahead and get into some of the questions that I want to highlight from today's press conference with head coach Dan Quinn. As he opened it up, he kind of mentioned that it was almost like the first day of school. Everybody's back, everybody's happy, refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to keep rocking, as Dan Quinn would say. So a lot of conversation around Marshon Lattimore, his return. Will it happen this weekend against his former team? Check out Coach Quinn's response to Marshon Lattimore's progress here.
Let's go back to Marshon. What did you guys see from him last week in his progress, and what do you anticipate this week from him?
Last week went good, John. A lot of top speed running. So hitting all the markers as we're moving along. He was able to participate in the work that we did today. And as we're getting into practice, we're looking forward to getting him, regular work with the practice with the guys, and then we'll take that all the way through the week. But we were very encouraged about all the work that he and the medical team have put in. He's hitting all the steps along the way, and look forward to doing that more in practice this week as well.
What do you need to see from him as you get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Just the markers of him being able to hit all the speeds, all the change of directions, and really all the things that will come up in practice for his position. So we've put him through a lot of tests, John, all the strength, all the speed to go. And so he's hit all the markers up until now. And so that process that we have is a strict one for that reason, to keep the players safe and healthy. And so he's done a really good job of making sure he could hit them. And we'll take that into practice now this week, and hopefully that'll lead into a full week of practice and into the game. But until we get all the way to that spot, I'll stay guarded, and then give you guys updates as we get into Friday.
So basically, Dan Quinn isn't going to tell us anything else until Friday. All right, use your clues on that one. We won't know until Friday. Of course, you can use your clues and watch the injury report, see if he's limited or full, and see how things are going there. But almost as if that was always the plan to begin with, and ensure that he heals fully, get through the bye week, play against New Orleans. So if you're just tuning in, you are watching from the Coach from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I'm your host, Candi CWall. This is a live Bowie television recording. I'm sharing exclusive insights. We're back from the bye week, getting into some of those gems and nuggets that head coach Dan Quinn shared today in his press conference. I'll be answering some questions as well. If you're streaming through my Facebook page or watching through my Facebook stream, love button, and share this show with your Washington Commanders loving family and friends. If you are watching through the Bowie TV YouTube channel, make sure you hit the thumbs up, fire emoji so that I know you're here. Definitely drop all of your questions or comments in the chat. I will certainly try to get to as many as I possibly can during this sitting. If you're in the area, the city of Bowie, Maryland and surrounding areas, Verizon Channel 11 and Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. You all know I enjoy giving you all the updates, and I hope you are chiming into the conversation because there's so much more to discuss. Okay, so much more to discuss. I really appreciated the next question that I'm going to share that was given to Dan Quinn today about kind of the self-scouting and how he, so to speak, evaluates on where he is, where the team is right now. So check out this clip. It's about 2 minutes long. While you're checking out the clip, certainly drop any questions you have for me in the chat. I will certainly try to answer as many as I can.
In terms of getting ready for the stretch run, I know you wanted to take some time off, but I'm sure there's some self-scouting going on, and I'm just curious, like, at this point, is it looking back at just recent games? Do you factor in all of the season, or kind of whatever you did, what was sort of your thought process and your staff's process going to do that?
Yep, you start first individually, with the players, and you wanted to find any trends of where we were, at the beginning to where we are as you're moving through each course of the season. So we are able to basically self-scout as we're going, Ben, but you also want to get more specific, get a little further down. What's that on man coverage? What's this, route combination? What does that look like? How do we put different people in different spots to make sure they can really do what they're doing? So you want to look from an individual standpoint first. Are we putting the guys in the right spots to make the right plays, based on their skills? Then from a scheme standpoint, what's been successful and why? And you want to make sure you want to feature the things the guys can really nail, Ben, so they can play without hesitation to absolutely let it rip. When injuries and stuff factor in, okay, you don't just plug and play. There's, certain people that will have to take up, different responsibilities for example, like Austin. And so that also factors in. But you look individually, player-wise, then scheme, and then from the coaching side, you do want to make sure you look ahead to say, what contingencies would we need? And that's always the part of having a big, deep roster that you want to make sure is the next ready. And so that's part of my push, Ben, with the staff, to always make sure that everybody, is on the push to get ready. So there's not a player on the roster, oh, it's okay, he's just developing. I don't think that way at all. Each position group, each week, we're pushing them to say, are you ready? Are you prepared? And that's how we can get the whole group ready, as opposed to having to look elsewhere when those things come up.
I hope you all caught the clue in the gem of not just waiting and say, oh, they're just developing. Love button fire emoji. If you caught that, that was toward the end of that clip. Okay. And it's a very important point because when you hear the coaching staff talk about rolling out a deep crew, I tie that into what DQ shared today in that in order to roll out a deep crew, everybody's got to be ready. Let's go back to the games that we watch when the Commanders aren't playing, right? And we go back to, let's just go ahead and say it, a Detroit Lions currently with an ever-growing injury list. Okay? And they rolled out a deep crew. I always talk about the lessons learned that Coach Joe Whitt and I believe Coach Jason Simmons and others have from the year they won the Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers and how many players were on IR that year. Listen, this is football. Injuries are going to happen. If you have somebody on your roster that is just kind of like, oh, we're waiting, that's not a winning pedigree. It's not a winning culture. It's not a winning thought process, okay, of what happens because the season is long and it is treacherous and it's a tough sport and things are going to happen. So you got to be able to just not to say that players, when they're hurt, they're not missed. That's not what I'm saying at all because they're absolutely missed. But the key is you got to keep going to try to win football games. Look at it being week 14 and there's teams that already have clinched their playoff berth. These teams are not without injury. Okay, these teams are not without their key players, right? Some of those weeks they miss some folks, right? But they're still able to close those gaps and make some things happen. We've actually seen the Washington Commanders do a good job of that as well. If we've talked about a lot about the running back position and the injuries that have happened to the running backs, to the offensive line, and them still keeping it going. That's what that means. That is very important point. I hope you all caught that. I see Lamar Bland caught it. So let's hope that others caught it as well. So on to the next question. I asked a similar question a few weeks ago when I asked Dan Quinn about what's 3 areas of improvement. So today he was asked about areas of improvement as well after the bye. Check out his response here.
What are those specific things you're looking for your team to improve on coming out of the bye?
We still want to improve on our turnover margin, Sam. I think we're at 8th or 9th, somewhere into that space. But we'd love to, as we're pushing through these games, you want to be able to try to finish in double digits if you can. And so we're not there yet. And so that's always one that's at the front of my thinking. Then you get into like tackling and breaking tackles from a fundamental standpoint. How do you work that? How do you break leverage onto people? And then as we're going in through that, we're always come back to the line of scrimmages. Now, I think I was referring earlier about that, with either John or with Nikki about that's going to be, an area of emphasis for us. And not just this game and the next game, but really just moving forward. That has to be, a strong part of what we do.
So you all, let me dive into a couple of the questions that I received during the bye. So if you have some questions, drop them in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and share some of the questions, take a break from the clips, even though we're going to get back to clips because I have some more. Got this question in, shout out to Mazdak because he saw them in a group and then he sent them over to me and I said, please remind me to make sure I address these questions. Happy to do so on the show live. So the question is, has De'Ami Brown done enough to get burned as wide receiver 2? If not, who do you feel should be wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season? Well, barring any injury, which we would have to get an update on him, is Noah Brown. I mean, right now, it's Noah is wide receiver 2. If Noah is out, then my assumption would be, then yes, De'Ami Brown would be wide receiver 2. But right now, this is kind of that notion around rolling out a deep crew, because there's still opportunities for Luke McCaffrey to get involved. There's still opportunities for Olamide Zaccheaus to get involved. There's still a lot that can happen for the remainder of the season in terms of trying to continue to be creative and just seeing what the entire wide receiver group can do. Back during the summer, back during training camp, you all heard me say this. There's Terry McLaurin, and then there's everybody else, right? So it's still kind of who's the 2, who's the 3, who's the 4. Well, who knows? But when the play is drawn up, it's drawn up for certain people. They told the story. Let's go back to the now famous Hail Mary story, where that Hail Mary was practiced and it was set up for Noah Brown to catch the touchdown, right? And at that point in time, you really don't know if it's about the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. It's whomever's number is called to say, we think this play is best set up in this way. So there is that answer to that question. And I see there is a comment here. I'm still waiting for Luke. Hey, listen, they're rolling out a deep crew, and I'm going to roll with the deep crew comment, because we've seen the deep crew, in reality. There's been some really slick plays happening with Luke involved, and it's like, it's like it's right there for that to just that connection to just get really popping. So it's right there, but there's some options there. But that's kind of the answer for right now, just from my perspective. This was from last week. So another question, Austin Eckler said on his radio spot that he doesn't remember anything from the Dallas game. He doesn't remember walking off the field. He said that he's still in the protocol. With him being on IR, should they just shut him down for the season, have C-Rob be B-Rob's backup, and call up one of the young running backs on the practice squad to take Eckler's place? I mean, they could. I mean, he is shut down. He is on IR. And IR doesn't necessarily mean 4 weeks. That means 4 games. Okay, so in that regard, he is shut down for the rest of the regular season, right? And at that time, they would have to evaluate. So Austin Eckler technically right now is shut down. If the team were to make the playoffs, if the season were to continue, then they would have to do what they would normally do in assessing where he is at that time, and that would just be the determination at that point. But he is on IR, so he's out at least 4 games, which right now is the rest of the season, technically. So he is shut down. Again, there would have to be an assessment made, I'm sure, as time goes on, but that is what it is. I think that what the 3 that we saw in the Titans game, that is the 3 that will be seen until, if hopefully nothing happens, but those are the 3. That is Brian Robinson Jr., Jeremy McNichols, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. If there could potentially be some creativity, some shifts, right? If you see some things change at punt return, or you can maybe use another player coming out of the backfield, you might see a bit more of that. But right now, sure, absolutely. You could bring up Wally or Kaz Allen could operate in that position as well. But those are the 3. I think that's a solid 3. For certain, I think that is a solid 3 right there. And they've proven to be so. Let's see. Another question. How will the quarterback position shake out with Marcus Lattimore set to make his Commanders debut? Well, I mean, I think we've already seen a bit of how it's shaken out with the release of Emmanuel Forbes, right? And I think the rest of it remains to be seen. One thing that I so much appreciate about this coaching staff is they don't answer. I mean, they answer your question, absolutely, but they're not going to give away their competitive advantage, right? Because if fans have the question, if the media has the question, then I'm sure the Saints are sitting around waiting for the answer to that question so that they can plan accordingly. And you've all heard me share this in other on this show, as well as on other shows that have been a guest on, in that oftentimes, depending on the question and how it is answered, that could be considered competitive advantage. So trying to understand how it's going to shake out, we'll see on Sunday. And I feel like we've all been pleasantly surprised before. So why not? We know that they've had some, some shifts with Mikey Sammer still. Let's go with what we do know and using our clues. So we know that, right? We also know that you've seen a bit more of Michael Davis, right? And then Benjamin St-Juste. Michael Davis taking a little bit more reps than Benjamin St-Juste. So it's some things moving around. It's some things already in play in terms of movement and what's going on there. So you have to take note of those things, because those things are in fact happening. But to actually answer it and have the team answer it, just wait till Sunday, because who would want them to give up their competitive advantage? Nobody would want that. No way. We don't want that at all. So we'll see how it happens and how all that goes down. But it is certainly something to watch. It's certain, and then they might shake it up a bit. Why not? If you have corners that can play multiple spots. So that is definitely a storyline to continue watching for certain. What is that going to look like, and what is that going to mean for the cornerback group? How will Cliff Kingsbury integrate Luke and Ben Sinnott into the offense more? And could their involvement in the offense more open up more possibilities for Jaden in this offense? Let me tell you something. I really feel like the way they're looking at this, the way they're doing this, the world is their oyster. Seriously. They have a lot of possibilities. They have a lot of things that they can do. They have assets that they have not yet utilized. And that's a good thing. Everybody doesn't need to see your hand just yet. Some things you don't have to pull out of your back pocket until you have to pull it out of your back pocket. Right now, I think a key for this offense is to do what you've seen work. Get the ball to Terry McLaurin early and often. Let Brian Robinson Jr. do his thing, and let the running game do its thing, because you've seen production out of the running back room overall, right? You get the tight ends involved. Right now, it is Zach Ertz, because Ben Sinnott is doing an amazing job blocking. But from a wide receiver group perspective, if they so choose to start shaking it up a bit there, then you already know who they're not ready for. You're giving teams time, which is okay, to get ready for Terry McLaurin, but who doesn't get ready for the team's number one receiver? Okay, let's go back to things that we learned in watching other teams play. That is like Sam Darnold not getting the ball to Justin Jefferson. Of course, you're going to throw it to Justin Jefferson all day if you could. And if you don't get Justin, you're going to get Jordan Addison. It's things like that where you know they're just going to happen, unless somebody's having a bad day. But these things are just going to transpire. And that's okay. That's good. So I think the possibilities are there, but I definitely think that the team just needs to focus on what works and what is the combination that when they put that combination together, it results in W's. Of course, get everybody involved. Everybody's going to be involved, and everybody is involved. Right? Like I said, some amazing blocking jobs. This is not just the O-line. Ben Sinnott gets involved. John Bates gets involved as well in the blocking game. Okay, so it's a lot that can be done, but just get them to doing what works consistently. I think you switch it up when you have to. Let's see. After a much needed week off, how will the players and coaches adjust from being a team that no one thought of much at the beginning of the season to a team that is fighting for their playoff lives? Now, here's the thing that I will take out of Dan Quinn's book. One game at a time. One game at a time. He told us last week, hey, listen, when we get back, I'm dealing with one game at a time. He reminded us again today, I'm dealing with one game at a time. This question, what it is basically the same attitude they have every week. They need to have that attitude, right? I remember they showed a clip of Tom Brady talking to the rookie class at a Fanatics event with the NFL rookies. And he said that he treated preseason games like they were Super Bowl games. That way, when he got to the Super Bowl, his mind, his thought process, it didn't change. And so I'm saying that to say that is a recurring theme amongst champions. And when you have coaches who have won Super Bowl championships as coaches and as players, and you have players on the team that have won Super Bowl championships, they understand it is not how you show up when you're fighting for your playoff life. It's how you show up to practice. It's how you show up to film study. It's how you show up on Sunday. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's good. If you show up like this all the time, then greatness awaits. So there's no difference in the mentality. It's all the same. And that's what you want to hear. And that's what we want to observe as media, because then we know they ready for whatever day it is. You can play the game on Thursday. You can play it on, you want to flex it to Saturday? Okay, that's fine. We can play on Saturday too. Would you like to play Sunday at 1, 4:25, 8, Monday, doubleheader? Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's the same mentality. Same mentality. And that is what you want to know. And you want to see it. And you want to just effectively hear it and say, you know what they're saying and what they're doing, it mirrors. It maps. So all good things. All good things. And they really are just this week. And I have shared with you all, love button fire emoji if you've heard me say this, because I know I've said it. I could even ask a player or a coach and say and make a comment about a game down the road. They'd be like, whoa, Candi, we dealing with this week. Let's get back to this week right here. Got you. And then I'm going to ask you about this week. They're not dealing with that. They're not getting wrapped up in the standings and the seeds and all that. That's not what's happening in real life. And I'm going to keep you all to the grind and buckled in and locked in to what's happening in real life. And speaking of what's happening in real life, one of the questions, I don't think I played this last week because it has some audio issues in it. So bear with the recording while it has some audio issues. On Thanksgiving Day, I asked defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., because he often talks about playing 60 minutes of football. I think this is a very important point, right? Because what did we learn while we're watching other teams play? They are in those who, for the most part, those who clinched their playoff berths this past weekend, those that have better records, let's just say, than the Washington Commanders currently, 60 minutes of football. As long as the clock is ticking, they got time. So 60 minutes is you got to know how to play it, because that's what they're doing around here, for real. So I asked Coach Joe Whitt Jr. about this. Please bear with the audio, because I do want you all to hear his response to my question.
Coaches, everyone else has said happy Thanksgiving.
All right, same to you.
You mentioned last week about the 53 minutes of good football. That was against the Eagles, and then you mentioned it again around 3/4 of good, solid defensive football from the defensive side. So what kind of goes into just the overall readiness to play 60 minutes of what you would define as the brand of football you all want to play?
Well, there's multiple things that you can look at. From my standpoint, I got to do a good enough job of saying, okay, am I leaving enough calls in the second half that we didn't run in the first half that they haven't seen? Are we making the proper adjustments, which I think we have, because typically the third quarter the points aren't up either. It's the fourth quarter, and then the got to have it moments. Do we really understand from a player to coach to coach what we're going to do, how we're going to execute it, what they're going to do. For the most part, we understand what they're going to do, but we all have to be on the exact same page, and there can't be any hesitation. And so we're working to make sure that we can get the whole 60 minutes together. The guys are playing hard, but playing hard is just the beginning of it. All right, it's the details and executions. Everybody in this league going to play hard. All right, we have to make sure that we finish it. So we're working at it, and hopefully it'll come true this week. Yes, ma'am.
So, did you write those things down? Because I did. Okay, it's in my notebook of all that goes into it. Because as you heard defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. say, everybody's playing hard. Everybody's playing. Everybody in this league is playing hard. So it's got to be about more than playing hard. So make that note. I think it's important. Let's jump into the questions that I had for Dan Quinn today. Here was my first question to DQ in his press conference. Hey there, Coach. I see you coming in hot. You kind of already answered some of my questions, but I have a couple more.
All right, bring them on.
Last game, Sheldon Day was one of the captains. So can you share what you've seen out of him so far?
Yes, I thought he's really made a significant impact here. And I would consider him one of the glue guys here, behind the scenes, that can help people connect, stay together. He's a very consistent player. And so up some games, not active for some games, but to see him remain the same each and every week, Candi, I thought that was significant. And that type of consistency was rewarded, that's why we named him a captain for that game. But he's got a nice way about him of connecting behind the scenes to make sure the people are in the right spots doing the right things. And I've been certainly impressed by that.
And I've noticed it as well. And I still had it. I hadn't heard anybody else ask. So I said, let me get back to this question because I don't think it has been asked yet. And I thought, if you go back to the reasoning behind why they choose the team, game day captains, I thought it was interesting because I have been watching, how Sheldon moves, and going back to the point that Fedarian Mathis was a healthy scratch, and that Sheldon was named a game captain, and that Carl Davis was brought up from the practice squad at defensive tackle. I just wanted Dan Quinn's thoughts. I thought it was important. And so I see that someone is catching the clue here, and I hope you all are too. And if you're streaming through Facebook or YouTube, let me know that you're still here, because I don't want you to miss important points like that, because that was a very important point. It really was. So don't miss it. Do not miss it. Also, here's my second question to DQ today on the line of scrimmage. And you mentioned where you all are regarding the line of scrimmage. So can you share a little bit more about your thoughts on where you think the team is right now?
Sure. As we're going, we wanted to make sure from, the way we run the ball, run defense, all of that being such an important phase of what we do. A lot of the time, the run offense and the run defense can be the longest to get going. But now that we've established a lot of playing time together, that has to be the focal point, as we're moving forward through this final stage of the second half of the season for us. And so that part, run game, all 11 together, pass protection, same thing defensively, the run defense, and how does all that tie together? That's really what makes it all come alive. And the fun part of that is not every offense does it exactly the same. So defending one offense is different from another one. And that's kind of the fun part of being in the NFL and coaching, to say this is what you have to get done this week. It's not the same exact every week, but defending different players and different schemes. And we certainly have a running back here that is exceptional, that we'll head down to New Orleans to face. And he's a perfect example of that.
I'm going to play this next clip, and that will be our last clip for the evening, because since it was a bye, we don't have much of the game conversation to talk about. And definitely drop in the chat if you have any questions for me, because this is always a great opportunity to ask someone who is in the room, on the ground, part of daily media with the Washington Commanders, to kind of get a perspective of what's happening, or just my opinion. Of course, I'm not getting any X's and O's. Now, after the games are over, I may try to pressure test to make sure I'm understanding or seeing some things. And yes, I may have those conversations kind of offline just to make sure I'm being smart. But yeah, I'm not going to give you any X's and O's. And even if I could, I wouldn't give away competitive advantage, because that's no fun on Sundays. So let me play this last clip. Definitely drop in the chat any of your thoughts, any of your questions for me, and then we'll close out, because I've been asked two things in the last couple days. One is about Jonathan Allen, and the other is about how sometimes teams can come out flat after a bye week. So I will share my thoughts on those two after this clip.
So you've gone through a huge stretch of the season now. What have you learned most about this team, and has anything surprised you at this point?
I have learned that this is a really resilient and tough group, and I just don't think they're ever out of the fight. And I love that about our team. That's our makeup. That's what we stood for. To say, at the end, you still got a chance to go battle for it. I'd love to say you win all these close games, but we did have to go through those, Donna. That's where you grow. It hasn't been always easy for us going through those difficult games, but you do grow, even though it sucks to have the last second loss, or the, one that comes down at the end. But I'd love to say you didn't have to go through that, but in a way you do, because that is where some of this toughness and resilience does come from. That's one thing I've learned. Things that have surprised me, I would say they've connected even faster than I thought they would, Donna. It's not easy for a lot of people to connect this quickly. There had to be some agendas that were pushed to the side to make sure that the team could do well. One of the things that's fun to be on the sideline when you see them get excited for the other players making plays. And so when you, as a team, when you see other guys getting all excited when guys making play and it's not themselves, that's a really good sign, because they know they're all in it for their guys. And so that's what made today a fun day here, to see their energy, to be back in the building, doing their thing together. And so that would be my surprise, that they bonded and connected faster than most early teams. And then the thing that I've learned is that these guys are tough. And I love that they're never out of the fight. By no means have we played perfect in a lot of ways, but the fact that this type of energy and this type of toughness is back in this building, I couldn't think of another group that I'd like to go and play this week with than these guys. They just absolutely love to fight together, and I love being a part of that.
And Commanders fans, drop in the chat your thoughts when you hear Dan Quinn say those comments about the team. Definitely the energy, the hypeness, all the things I've witnessed over the season for certain. And Jonathan Allen has been around, right? He's been at games. And I mean, I just simply say, in terms of, Jonathan, he was one of, I always go back to this point. During the preseason, there were only 3 players, in love button or fire emoji, if you've heard me say this, there are only 3 players that did not play in the preseason because they were having just exceptional camps. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Bobby Wagner. Okay. And I spent a lot of time over there with the defensive line, like I told you all, over the summer. And it is when he got injured, it was a sad moment. It was a bad day for the team. First of all, they don't want any of their teammates get injured. Let me be very abundantly clear about that. But in terms of when you look at overall production at the position, you've seen a lot of shifting at the position in some of these games in trying to get that right tandem, if you will, for that role. I would also say, and using clues, like I like to say, using your clues, just go take a look at the numbers, right? Because that's what I did one day. I'm just going to take a look at the numbers of things, run defense wise, and then it really just the run defense percentages and the numbers there, with Jonathan Allen and without. And there's a difference. There is a difference. So I'll leave that there, right? Because in terms of the culture, the attitude, the toughness, the brand of football they want to play, I think and believe that he has exemplified that at a high level every single day. And I will share that because that's what I know. And that's what I've seen. And that's what I was told. Also, in terms of confirming what I've been saying and what I was watching. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll all see what happens. But I do think a chance to look at the rankings and run defense and other areas as a team do matter and could tell another side of the story for sure. When we're asking that question or making that mention of that. That's what I'll say. Because I even looked to check to say, what do the numbers say? What does the data tell me? I can go by observation, right? I do research too. When we talk organizational change and behavior and people and change management, I'm also doing research. So I can use two things. I can use my eyes, my observation. I can use data points, interview questions. You use that data, and you also just go to the numbers, go to the statistics, go to the stats, go to the analytics, and what do those three things tell you? And you all can have the answer too. I'm telling you how I did it, so you can do it yourself as well. In terms of coming out flat after a bye, my response to that has been true. Yes, some teams absolutely do. I think the Commanders, I'm hoping they learned the lesson about that after the mini bye, right? The 10 days after the Thursday night football game against the Philadelphia Eagles, and then they came back home against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that was a wake-up call, right? I think so. And perhaps that experience has now led to where we know what we're not going to do after the real bye. That is what I'll say on that. That is what I will say on that. So it looks like you all didn't have any questions for me, which is fantastic, which is great. Saints matchup. We know there's some conversation around Derek Carr's injury, exactly what it is. Sounds like he'll be week to week. Which quarterback will the team face? Is anyone going to New Orleans, by the way? Will you be there? But hey, regardless of who they take on or what's going on, of course, it's the Chase Young reunion as well. Jaden Daniels played football down there at LSU. A homecoming of sorts, in all sorts of ways. It doesn't really matter who they're playing against as long as they come out and are ready to win a football game. This came up earlier, and the team announced that they have opened up the 21-day window on Jamison Crowder, which means he can return to and get reintegrated into practice. And then from there, can potentially return to game day. So, and could be sooner than 21 days, but they have opened up that window for sure. And you are welcome, Richard Ryan. So we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. I will be in Ashburn throughout the week, so don't plan on missing anything there. For all that are traveling to New Orleans, safe travels. I will be there myself, as you all probably have already know that I'll be there. So safe travels to all, and just stay safe. You all maybe have heard me say last week. I said, "Hey, look, it's 7 games was my total. I was wrong. They're at 8, so everything else is a bonus." It's bonus time. We are in the bonus area. So I'm good to go on my coverage. But no, I'm still covering the game. It's not like everything is roses, but I'm just saying it is a good thing. This team is what we would call or deem way ahead of schedule. And you even heard Coach Quinn talk about how quickly they have connected. And it's something to witness. It's something to witness, especially in covering such turmoil. And and being on the ground 7 years, and of course over the years living in the area. So it's a good thing. When sports is doing well in the area, everybody is doing well. And I just want to keep telling you all that again. Hey, listen, when the team is winning, we all win. Seriously, trust me, because nobody wants to cover losing sports. And it's really hard to keep you wonderful people engaged and wanting to talk about it when the teams aren't doing well. So if they're doing well, I can hope that you all are going to show up. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to this live version from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update, where we are giving you exclusive insights. We're back from the bye week. I am your host, Candi Waller. We also call me CWall, but my name is Candi. So if you hear the name on the presser, I'm it. You can also follow me on X, but at CWall SE. But make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you are in Bowie, Maryland, or surrounding areas. Definitely, and you haven't cut your cable. Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. You can watch the channel and all the great content all of the time. So make sure you're following me. Make sure you're locked in to all of the updates, and I will be talking to you all again soon.